Back to my channel and welcome to today's video. If you're new here, my name is Tilly. I try to give you study tips and tricks on this account every single day, so if you haven't already, be sure to like and subscribe so you do not miss out. On today's video, I have a very exciting guest. He's the person you think of when I say 2025 GCSE study tuber. He is the academic weapon that did in fact get all grade 9s at GCSE, and who is here to explain to you how you can do the same thing. It is the one and only Henry Brand. Good morning, Henry. Thank you so much for coming on my channel. Thank you for your time. Thank you for being here.
Good morning, Tilly. Thank you. Yeah, I'm great. Really excited to come on. So thank you for the opportunity. And yeah, hopefully it should be really good. I'm really excited to kind of have two people together teaching today. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, me too. Thank you very much for coming on and offering all of your tips. Because I think if you don't know, Henry got all grade 9s at GCSE. So he did a bit better than me. I did get 2 8s, as the title of this video does suggest. Hopefully together we can come together and combine our tips and give you the best chances of success.
Yeah, I don't know how many 9s we've got combined, but yeah, we have the credentials today to help.
First things first, I think what we want to talk about to begin with is mindset, because before anything, you need to have the right mindset and the right attitude if you are going to succeed. Often, so many people are short-sighted. They just think, oh, I want all grade 9s, and that's where they leave it. But I think it's so important to have that long-term motivation, something else to work towards. What kind of job do you want to do? Do you want to go to university? What do you want to do at A level, at degree? Do you want to make your parents proud? Do you want to prove to yourself you can do it? Henry, how do you feel about that, Henry?
Yeah, so I think I find it really interesting how different, like what motivates different people. So for me, my mindset coming into year 11, I didn't really like, we'll cover this later, but I wasn't thinking about my exams at all. It was kind of, for me, it was my year 11 November mocks where I snapped into it and I realized, this is it. So I think I wish I had at the start of year 11 a bit more of an appreciation of like how much these results can do for you. If you had have told me then when I got my results that, in 3 years' time I'd still be talking about it on a YouTube channel and like tutoring. So I think being able to realize, kind of like you said, and recognize long term what these results can do for you in your future and understanding that they kind of do matter. There are other paths, obviously, if you don't get what you want, but I think accepting hard work pays off, and in the longer term it can really be a jump start for your education. So that's kind of what my mindset was and what I wish it would be.
That's what I would tell any GCSE student. If I could go back and tell myself one thing when I was at the start of year 11, it would be that, because I didn't appreciate what my results could do for me, how they could get me to where I am today, studying the degree that I'm studying, being able to give you guys study tips online like Henry. And yeah, it really is so important.
The one other thing as well I'd say is, from my experience last year when I was like teaching in a secondary school, I think secondary school is probably more than college. There's more temptation just because there are a lot of students who kind of mess about and don't care. And obviously that's still a thing in A levels, but I think you've got to be able to resist the temptation. Like when I was really revising, kind of from January onwards, like intense, a lot of people would say to me like, oh, you need to come out, like all of that stuff. And I think being able to kind of push that past and all of the social, I can't think of the word, the social like negativity from just working so hard. So I think, yeah, resisting temptation is a super important part of the mindset if you want to do super well for your GCSEs.
If anybody says otherwise, you do just kind of need to ignore them. You're doing this for yourself, for your future. You have that motivation to do it. Don't let anybody put you down or step on your ambition. So, Henry, you're talking about how important it is to start revising. You briefly touched on how your November mocks were when you realized, wow, I need to lock in. So, when did you start revising? What do you mean by start revising? And then I'll explain what I did. But what about you? When did you start?
Okay, yeah. So I basically year 10, I was always kind of what I say is I was always kind of naturally smart, like top set maths, top set science, and all that sort of stuff. But literally up until the start of year 11, I didn't revise. I was messing about in class and all of that. And for me, it was, yeah, my November mocks when I got a U in chemistry. I got like some of them were okay. I think I got like a 6 in biology. 6 or 5 in maths. Um, but yeah, for me, that was when it was November when I really started thinking, okay, like I really want to revise. And that's when I started thinking, okay, I'm going to set myself the goal of all nines. Um, so yeah, and it was kind of in December was when I really started doing things. In January, I got a planner. That so for me, I mean, that worked for me because I did end up with all nines, but I would say if I could, I would have revised earlier. So I don't think you need to revise like crazy in year 10 for GCSEs, to be honest. Like I wish I did a little bit more because it would have been easier, like with maths, for example. Um, and I would have had to play catch up a little bit less. But I think if you can start near the start of year 11, that's probably what I would advise. And because I did have to work, like it was really intense for the last few months, and I don't think that's necessarily good. But yeah, how about you, Tilly?
Well, what you've just told me is very inspirational. You got a U in chemistry and then came out with a 9
Yeah.
in less than 6 months. That is, give yourself a big pat on the back. That's incredible, Henry. But for me, I actually had the same sort of academic progression arc as you did. I got my November mock results and they were not very good. So I actually got a 3 in chemistry.
Oh, wow.
I
Chemistry,
came out
yeah.
with a 9. I did not do well in chemistry and history in particular. And that was because I didn't like those subjects. I really didn't. I love history now, though, which is kind of interesting. But anyway, I realized, right, this is the real deal. If I don't get good grades in my GCSEs, then I won't be able to go to university. At this point, I think it's really important to mention I didn't have ambitions of going to LSE where I am now. I just knew that I wanted to do something. And I knew that by getting these top grades, I would open doors for myself. Which doors would they be? I didn't know. But around the same time, I had this realization. So I started revising sort of a bit over the Christmas break, but then properly locked in like January. However, I would definitely echo what Henry said about starting from the start of year 11. Have a go at revising for your year 10 mocks, just to understand what revision strategies can you use, what works for you, how well can you do if you really put in the work. But you don't need to be revising like crazy and working yourself ridiculously hard for no reason. But from the start of year 11, always remember that consistency works better than intensity.
I think that I do find it interesting, to be fair, that we both got, very similar results, and we both like we both had very similar. We started revising at the same time. So I guess I don't know. It's interesting that because I think a lot of people assume that you do have to be like crazy from year 7 or like, even yeah, right at the start of year 10. So there's definitely like possibilities, to revise in year 11 and still do really well.
So, we've been talking about the importance of revising early, when we started revising, the fact that you need to have this motivation. We've not actually touched on how you revise. And to be quite honest, revising for GCSEs it's quite unique in the sense that you do so many subjects. So, how do you figure out what revision strategies work for you? Henry, what did you find was the most helpful revision strategy, or what did you find were the best ways to revise for each subject?
I think that's a great question. And yeah, I 100% agree. Like GCSEs are weird because you just have to like jump between like DT and history and chemistry and all of that. What worked for me? So I think for me, being on top of things was super important. So I always in my videos say a planner. I haven't got it on me, but I had this like little planner, and just being so organized and being able to like write in it, like what I was doing in each day or like what subjects I was going to cover was for me the foundation of my revision. In terms of like what I had was this. I had this like spreadsheet, this Excel spreadsheet, and I basically put in like every subject, every topic, and every subject, and I would kind of rank them between like red and yellow and green versus how confident I was for each little topic. And long story short, what that allowed me to do was see like I calculated an average, and I could see which subjects on average I was less confident in. And so for me, GCSEs, I kind of describe it a bit like juggling. It's like, what is my weakest subject? What's my weakest topic? How can I push that up? And then another weaker subjects will appear. So I was kind of trying to focus primarily on my weaker areas, but there was a lot of just kind of like recap and questions and all that sort of stuff. So in terms of like actual practical advice, there was a lot of practice questions, right? For maths and science, like loads and loads of practice questions. I don't think enough people write practice essays. So for English, all I did really for English language was I just did like one essay a week, one question a week. Same thing with geography. I'd spend like half an hour a week. History, because for GCSEs on like A level, like essay questions, they're at, you know, you can do it in like 25 minutes, half an hour. So yeah, having the time to do a lot of questions. And then my favorite revision website is Seneca. Did you use Seneca at all?
I didn't, but
Really?
I've heard a lot of good things. This
Yeah.
video is not sponsored, this is genuine advice. I haven't
Yeah.
used Seneca, but a lot of people have told me it's helpful. So that's a big tip. Use
Yeah.
Seneca.
Seneca, I'm waiting on a Seneca sponsorship. Yeah, for sure. So that's my kind of advice. How about you though?
Very similar. It's all about working on those weakest areas. And that's what everybody asks me, how do you actually increase your grades? You need to focus on those things that you're weakest on. And that's kind of difficult because you're weakest at those things because you don't like them, you don't want to do them. That's
Yeah.
why I was so bad at history. And it's not that I didn't like history as such, it's that I didn't like the way I was being assessed. I didn't like the fact I had to write an essay in this very particular way. I was so interested in the Cold War and I continue to be, but I just really didn't want to write an 8 marker with such a rigid paragraph structure. I forced myself to do it and I came out with a 9. On practical revision strategies and advice, I would say that in general, you just need to be using active recall. And you hear that term thrown around all of the time, and you're probably sick to death of hearing it, but it's so important. So all active recall is actively retrieving information from your long-term memory. Science has shown that it's so much more effective than just passively reading a textbook. So this can be doing practice questions, like Henry said, and just retrieving that information from your mind rather than just reading a book and then doing a practice question on it. I also found that blurting helped, particularly for those really content-dense subjects. Do you know what I mean? Maths is really hard and there's a lot to learn, but everything kind of stacks on each other in a way. It's like, okay, you learn how to do power laws, you learn how to do a number squared, a number cubed, and then you'll go on to something like Pythagoras' theorem. And then you'll go on to something like,
3D Pythagoras, for example.
there we go, Henry's got it. Things stack on each other. But when you have a subject like history, where one week you might be doing crime and punishment, and then the next term, you're doing the Cold War. To revise that content dense crime and punishment stuff, I would just write out everything I knew to highlight gaps in my knowledge. I would use blurting for that. So, on that, Henry, what would you say your top 3 favourite study methods were at GCSE?
Top three study methods, definitely flashcards. I had loads. I think I have some here actually. I had loads of paper flashcards. I know people say about Anki, and to be fair, I used Quizlet and digital ones for A levels, but I had like loads and loads of paper flashcards, and probably like for the last few months, it was almost like an hour a day every evening. I'd just go through them. So that was, I mean, that really got content in my head, especially for science. I found that super useful. Practice questions for me, for maths. I did Corbett maths every day. Corbett maths 5 a day. Yeah, I did
Yeah,
that
that's
daily.
the one.
Lots and lots of practice questions for all my subjects, like all the time. Probably like a good amount of my revision was that. And then final revision method was Seneca. So Seneca Learning, I used that. It's a website. I used it for content for like history, science. Again, it was really good. And yeah, one little small thing I'd say is for me, probably like I think people don't realize that science is like can be like 3 GCSEs or 2 GCSEs. Like a lot of people I know would revise the same amount of time for like maths and science because they saw science as one subject. But science was probably like 30 to 40% of my entire revision time actually. Maybe because I was coming from a lower base. But yeah, anyway, flashcards, practice questions, Seneca is that's my top three. How about you?
Very similar to you. And actually, I spent a lot of time revising science as well. Once again, probably because it was one of my weakest subjects. But yeah, flashcards I used them every day. I
Yeah.
use them for science, I use them for remembering formulas in maths, I use them for remembering key dates and things like history, quotes for religious studies, things like that. That practice papers. So when it was getting closer to exam season, I had a rule. After February half term, I would do an exam paper every single day for one subject.
Really?
And
Wow.
it's only an hour and a half, and I would try and do it in the early evening or maybe in the morning before school. And it was just one subject a day. And it sounds like a lot, but when you really get stuck in, you realize that it's so beneficial. So flashcards, practice papers, and practice paper questions, and then also blurting. I found blurting so helpful because there's so much to remember for religious studies, for history, for IT that I did, and that's the best way that I felt content actually stuck in my long-term memory. And finally, a final point, which, if anything, is the most important point of this video. It's about finding balance, avoiding burnout, and reducing your stress. So, Henry, you got all grade nines GCSE, and you went from quite low grades in your November mocks. How did you manage that intense revision with managing your stress and avoiding burnout and actually just staying motivated the whole time?
So I think a couple of things. One is that for some reason I didn't really get burnt out. I should have in hindsight been better at managing my stress, but I think for some reason, because it was so short and intense, I just so strongly felt I kept, visualizing the goal. I kept thinking about opening my results. How would that feel? And I don't know, it just kept me going. Like I was revising a lot. I think my like screen time was low and stuff, and I don't have a massive. I think for my A levels, I was a bit more. I spread it out more, so I enjoyed that more. But for me, it was because it was so short and so intense. What was in my head was I'll have summer is when I can relax much more. But like if I was giving advice to other people, I'd say start a little bit earlier, spread it out a little bit more, and have time where you are doing. There were things I was doing that I liked. So every Saturday morning, I'd do a run with my dad, park run, little 5K. But yeah, that's what I'd say.
I would make a habit of scheduling a time every week to just do nothing. Or not necessarily do nothing, but do something that's not related to school. I've talked about this in a few of my videos. I used to be a competitive badminton player. Every Saturday, I would train all afternoon and I would not even think about revision or homework. And that was needed. I needed to take my brain and my mind completely off studying and completely away from revision because I was not thinking about school or GCSE science when I was playing badminton match. I was, tactics, long-term strategy. How are we going to win this game? I think that really helped me de-stress. Even if you don't play sports or you don't love a particular sport, you should spend time away from revision. But by that, I do not mean just go on your phone.
Yeah.
That is not quality rest. You're not giving your brain a break when you are constantly scrolling and overloading your mind with information. You might be feel physically rested, you're not necessarily thinking about school, but your brain isn't getting a break. It's still processing large volumes of information, and you have no time to digest that content that you learned in the week. I think just scheduling time every week to do a hobby that is not just on your phone, even if it's baking, going out for dinner with your family, going on a walk, anything at all that you enjoy that is not school, and not feeling guilty about it because you need that time to give your brain a break and rest is productive.
I think thinking about it when you were talking, I was thinking about what I did in year 11, and I think without knowing, I did have a lot of things in place that meant I didn't burn out. So the phone thing was massive. I every night I would just put my phone away super early before bed, and I think I had a really good routine to get good sleep. So I would like read before bed, and yeah, I really prioritized sleep. So I think having that time to actually like truly wind down without, like you said, like going through TikTok and all that stuff. I deleted TikTok in year 11. Yeah, I think the phone is probably one of the biggest things I could say to young people and students.
100%. And same for me when I was in year 11. I deleted Instagram. I remember this is really cringe to reflect on now, but I had someone do my Snapchat streaks for me
Really?
um, because I couldn't sacrifice those. My friends
Mm.
had attended them. Anyway, I totally logged out of social media in exam season. I think it really helped me because I was just able to focus on my work and get a good quality of sleep, like Henry was saying. It's so important to allow your body to actually rest. And when you use your phone just before bed, your quality of sleep is going to be worse. That is a scientifically proven fact. So making sure that you're doing something like reading before bed or just taking some time to properly unwind instead of just scrolling away and trying to get to sleep. That brings us to the end of the video. So if you made it to this point in the video, you are a real one. You are a dedicated student because this has been a long video. This has taken some strong attention span to keep up with and keep watching. So if you did find it helpful, be sure to share it with a friend. Be sure to like and subscribe to my channel. Be sure to subscribe to Henry's channel. Hopefully I will see you in the next video. Bye guys!